Francis in the hospital. An update on the health of the Holy Father after a planned weekend surgery. We're in Rome. Going on trial. Why a Vatican judge has issued 10 indictments. Surfside search. The death toll rises after the Florida condo collapse as Tropical Storm Elsa nears the state. And Independence Day. What President Joe Biden said on the July 4th holiday. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, July 6th, 2021. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. Pope Francis remains in the hospital following a scheduled surgery on Sunday night. The Holy Father is in good condition and alert after undergoing intestinal surgery in Rome. The Holy Father arrived at the Gemelli Hospital on July 4th for a 3-hour procedure. The Vatican says the 84-year-old is expected to spend the rest of the week recovering. Joining us now with analysis is Hannah Brockhaus, senior Rome correspondent for Catholic News Agency. Hannah, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. What can you tell us about this surgery, and why did he have it now, and what sort of recovery can he expect?
That's right, Tracy. The Pope had this surgery on Sunday where they removed a part of his colon to prevent blockage caused by diverticulitis, and they expect him to be in hospital about 7 days, depending on if there are complications. And then after that, his recovery may take a few weeks of kind of limited activities.
And I also understand there's something really interesting about the room at Gemelli Hospital. What can you tell us about that?
That's right. His hospital room is the same that Pope John Paul II used throughout his pontificate. It's a special medical suite reserved for popes. And this suite has 5 rooms that can be seen from the outside of the hospital. This is where John Paul II went, for example, for his own colon surgery in the 90s. It's also where he was treated after the assassination attempt against him in 1981.
And Hannah, can you talk about the Pope's health overall? We know that he's 84 years old. How is he doing health-wise overall?
This Pope is considered to be really healthy, especially considering his age. This is his first major operation since becoming Pope. In 2019, he did have an outpatient surgery for cataracts. He had a bad cold at the beginning of 2020, and every once in a while he has these flare-ups of sciatica nerve pain in his back. But other than that, this is the first major operation that he's had.
Hannah, what kind of reaction has this surgery had in Rome and also worldwide?
Well, of course, in Rome, this is a major news story. There have been journalists up outside the hospital, TV reporters, ever since we got the first notification about the operation on Sunday. And worldwide, of course, it has a significance as well because the Catholic Church is universal and Catholics around the world are concerned for Pope Francis and I'm sure are praying for him.
Yeah, and what have we heard about Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI? Has he said anything about Pope Francis's surgery?
He has. We heard from the Benedict XVI's personal secretary, Archbishop George Gansfine, who said that Benedict is holding Pope Francis fervently in his prayers. He's thinking about him. Pope Francis said recently about Benedict that he's like the contemplative heart of the Vatican now that he has been retired for several years and he lives in a monastery inside Vatican City. The Pope praised Benedict for the way that he prays for the Church from his home in the Vatican.
And Hannah, before I let you go, last Sunday, Pope Francis confirmed that he will be traveling to Budapest in September, but also Slovakia. What more do you know about that? What can you tell us?
That's right. We knew that Pope Francis would travel to Budapest on September 12th to give the closing Mass for the 52nd International Eucharistic Congress taking place there. But now it has been confirmed that he will also spend several days from September 12th to September 15th visiting 4 different Slovakian countries. Obviously, Pope Francis right now is in a hospital bed, and probably he'll be taking it easy for the next few weeks. Thankfully, he's on a summer schedule this month, so he has time to relax, make a full recovery, so that hopefully he will be in great condition to travel in September.
Absolutely. Well, continue to pray for the Holy Father. Hannah, thank you so much for your time today and for your report. We appreciate it. Hannah Brockhaus, Senior Rome Correspondent for Catholic News Agency. Thank you again.
Thank you.
A Vatican judge has indicted 10 people, including a cardinal, in connection with a London real estate venture allegedly concealed by the Secretariat of State. An Italian businessman and 5 former Vatican officials will face multiple charges, including Cardinal Angelo Becciu. Cardinal Becciu had resigned his Vatican post last September and maintains his innocence. A combined Vatican-Italian investigation cites financial mismanagement, which led to substantial losses. The trial date is set for July 27th. Well, it has been 6 months ago today that millions watched people storm the U.S. Capitol, and now a January 6th committee will further investigate the events leading up to the riot. Since then, the U.S. Capitol complex has been closed to visitors. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales has more.
Well, things are certainly opening up here in Washington, D.C., but the U.S. Capitol remains closed to the public. Capitol Police do plan to bring down this 8-foot-high fence this week, but they can't tell me when the visitor center will reopen. The Capitol Police Board reportedly recommended in February that the fence remain in place until September as investigators continue to monitor threats. Meanwhile, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is moving ahead with the January 6th Select Committee, naming 8 lawmakers, including Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney of Wyoming.
It would be shocking to me for anybody from a party on the other side to come and want to accept a position, Democrat from me, and it'd be shocking to me to have a Republican to go to a Speaker Pelosi, of all people, to accept a committee assignment.
Well, that Kevin McCarthy has only one priority, and that is to do whatever Donald Trump tells him to do.
Representative Liz Cheney's GOP colleagues voted to strip her of her leadership post in May after she criticized President Trump's alleged involvement in the riot. Leader McCarthy has appointed 5 members, led by Minority Whip Steve Scalise. Congressman McCarthy may be subpoenaed to testify.
At the end of the day, there should be no sacred cows. We should investigate and find out all of the factors that went into that tragedy, why there wasn't a more robust response in protecting the Capitol when it happened, what role anyone played in that.
House Majority Whip Jim Clyburn, who will chair the Select Committee, says he doesn't want to see a former president appear before the panel, but adds that Donald Trump should do so, quote, if it comes to that.
I would not want to see a former president testifying in such a situation as this, but if that's what it takes in order to get to the bottom of this, because this is more than any one person.
The Select Committee has yet to announce when they plan to get started. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
And coming up later in the newscast, analysis from Amber Athey, Washington editor of The Spectator. Well, over the weekend, President Joe Biden hosted a July 4th gathering at the White House where he compared the events of 1776 to overcoming the coronavirus.
245 years ago, we declared our independence from a distant king. Today, we are closer than ever to declaring our independence from a deadly virus.
The country is within 3% of the president's goal for 70% of eligible Americans to have at least one vaccine shot. In his remarks, the president also cited a reviving economy and called for an end to division and despair. The death toll in Surfside, Florida has risen to 32, with more than 100 people still missing as recovery crews comb through debris of the now completely demolished condominium. The search of the Champlain Tower South rubble is widening.
The search and rescue team has been able to search all sections of the grid on the collapse following the building demolition.
The controlled demolition, a necessary step given the dual threats of a wobbling building and Tropical Storm Elsa.
The lightning storms is a concern for us where we stop, and definitely the wind gusts.
Fire, smoke, and now wind and torrential rain. They are continuing the mission.
Crews removed nearly 5 million pounds of concrete. But as the search continues, so do the questions.
Every piece of information that comes out, I have more questions.
New internal documents obtained by CNN shed light on the urgent need for $15 million worth of repairs that were delayed for years. One of the slides in a series of presentations from the fall and winter of 2020 was titled, "Why We Have to Do All This Now." Another explained there is no waterproofing layer over the garage in the driveway or any area except the pool deck and planters. This has exposed the garage to water intrusion for 40 years. Where there is waterproofing, it has failed. Water has gotten underneath and caused additional damage to the concrete.
How was this missed for so long that it reached this?
Tropical storm Elsa has crossed western Cuba with its outer bands touching South Florida. The storm is expected to reach hurricane force as it tracks over the Keys toward Tampa. Elsa's forecasted path takes it northeastward along the I-95 corridor towards New England by Friday. Hong Kong police have arrested 9 suspects on charges of plotting multiple bombings. 6 are high school students.
They have now turned from above ground terrorist activities to underground hidden terrorist activities.
Authorities displayed evidence which they say was intended to attack transportation facilities across the city. Overnight in Nigeria's northwest Kaduna state, armed gunmen kidnapped at least 140 children from a Baptist school. Some 24 reportedly escaped. Such abductions for ransom in Nigeria have been frequent, often by jihadist militants. A regional passenger plane with 28 people aboard crashed in the eastern Russian region of Kamchatka early today. There are no reports of survivors. Preliminary reports say the prop plane may have veered off course during its final landing approach in fog, striking a coastal sea cliff where wreckage has been found. Among the missing is a local mayor who is presumed dead. An investigation and search mission are underway. Over the past weekend, several rescue operations on the Mediterranean Sea have saved nearly 600 migrants from dangerous waters near Malta. Many were children, and there are reports of several drownings. Italy reports almost 21,000 migrants from North Africa this year. Coming up, analysis of the debate on Capitol Hill over the January 6th committee. Reported earlier, the January 6th Commission is starting to take shape on Capitol Hill. Democrats say it is important to get to the bottom of what happened, but Republicans say it is nothing more than political theater. Joining us now to talk more about this is Amber Athey, Washington editor for The Spectator. Amber, welcome back. Good to see you. First off, I'd like to get your take on the January 6th Select Committee. What are your thoughts on it, and also the timing of it?
Sure. Well, even just the setup of the committee makes quite clear that this is a partisan, not a fact-finding endeavor. 10 of the Republicans who actually voted to impeach former President Donald Trump over his response to the Capitol riots, out of those 10 Republicans, only 2 of them actually agreed with the way Pelosi set up this select committee. She actually gets to choose 8 out of the 13 members without input from anyone else. And the other 5 are chosen with just the advice of the minority leader, but Pelosi still ultimately gets to choose those individuals as well. So this is not going to be a very bipartisan committee. We're not even sure what powers exactly it's going to have. So far, it just looks like this is a way for Democrats to continue the narrative that Trump supporters are violent and are trying to cause an insurrection. And they're not really trying to get to the bottom of what actually happened.
Yeah, on a different note, I know that you actually wrote a story about a new social media initiative from Jason Miller, one of former President Trump's top advisors. What more can you tell us about this initiative?
Yes, the new social media app is called Getter. It was launched on July 4th, Independence Day. That was no coincidence. The idea behind this app is that it does not censor people for having the quote unquote wrong political opinions like some of the big tech social media companies, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Jason Miller, former Trump advisor, talked to me about the app, and he said that they have several backup plans and contingency plans in place in case that the big tech companies like Amazon's web hosting service do decide to deplatform them. But some of the interesting features they have that places like Twitter and Facebook don't have is a 777 character limit on these posts, a 3-minute video limit, which is much higher than Twitter, and some more features that will be coming out are live streaming capabilities, as well as the ability to tip content creators. So they've been working on this for about a year now, and it looks very promising in terms of having a content moderation policy that is fair and doesn't discriminate against people just based on having, again, the wrong political opinions.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you, can you talk a little bit more about, the importance of that, of having alternatives so that people can get their views out, particularly those with conservative viewpoints?
Right. Well, this has been a big issue over the past year. Conservatives have been censored for suggesting that the coronavirus actually might have leaked out of the Wuhan lab as opposed to being naturally occurring and coming from a wet market. The New York Post was censored on Twitter for reporting on Hunter Biden's emails, which came from his hard drive. It was a completely legitimate story. And conservatives have been censored for suggesting that there may have been fraud in the 2020 election. Even if you just point out an instance of fraud and don't even say, that Trump is the real president and that Joe Biden actually lost, that still is enough for Twitter to flag and remove your post. And of course, the former president, Donald Trump, has been removed from Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. So when you look at all of these instances, it doesn't seem to be a coincidence that they're all happening in one direction. So at a certain point, conservatives have to start looking for alternatives to make sure that their voices are able to be heard on the internet.
We have a little less than 30 seconds, but I want to get your take on this. Sunday, of course, is Independence Day, as you know, and a lot of us celebrated the birth of our nation with fireworks and get-togethers. Not everyone was so enthusiastic. Some liberal lawmakers and commentators basically denounced the holiday. In fact, Missouri Democrat Cori Bush said the 4th of July is only about freedom for white Americans. Probably about 20 seconds left. Amber, your thoughts?
Well, it certainly is disappointing that an individual who has been able to rise to one of the top positions in our country would have the gall to say that she doesn't have freedom or people like her don't have freedom. The beauty of America is that everyone has equal opportunity here, and you would think a congressperson who has made it all the way to elected office would know that.
Well, Amber, thank you so much for your time today, your analysis. We appreciate it. Amber Athey, Washington editor for The Spectator. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Up next, concerns over a United Nations program that funds abortion. The United Nations Population Fund has released its first budget since President Biden took office, and two pro-lifers are sounding the alarm. They say the White House is seeking a major funding increase to the group as payback for pro-abortion support during the 2020 campaign. In an opinion piece in the Washington Times, Representative Chip Roy from Texas and Marjorie Dannenfelser of the Susan B. Anthony list write that the UN Population Fund, quote, openly partners with some of the worst human rights abusers, including North Korea, Iran, and China, all while receiving millions of dollars a year from the U.S. government since Mr. Biden rolled back the Trump-Pence administration's funding ban. Representative Roy has introduced a measure to stop the UN group from receiving U.S. taxpayer money. From his refuge in India, the Dalai Lama celebrates his 86th birthday today. The Dalai Lama expressed appreciation during a video message to a small virtual celebration. He thanked India for its freedom and religious harmony, pledging to continue a life of non-violence. In 1959, he fled his native Tibet ahead of Chinese military rule. And finally tonight, today is the feast of Saint Maria Goretti, and her life remains a model of purity and mercy for all Christians. She was born in 1890 at the age of 11. A 20-year-old man tried to rape her. She resisted. He stabbed her more than a dozen times. She died soon after. In 1950, she was canonized by Pope Pius XII. And joining us now is Dr. Matthew Bunson, executive editor and Washington bureau chief of EWTN News. He is also the co-author of our Sunday Visitors Encyclopedia of Saints. Dr. Bunson, thank you so much for your time today. Great to be with you. What more can you tell us about Saint Maria Goretti and also her example of forgiveness and mercy towards her attacker?
Well, to appreciate the life of Maria Goretti is to appreciate the virtue of chastity, of purity, but it's also of fortitude. Her family had owned a farm. It suffered very severe economic misfortune, and they were forced to sell the farm, become really laborers themselves, and then move in with another family, the Serenellis. That becomes important, as you'll see in a second. But while her mother was working in the fields and her father died from complications of malaria when she was only 9, she was then attacked by one of the members of the Serenelli family by the name of Alessandro. And as you noted, he attempted to rape her, but she fought him. She cried out to him not to do this. And she did it because, as she said, she was worried about his soul, that he was on a path to hell. And enraged, he stabbed her to death, and she lingered for another whole day after the attack. She underwent surgery without anesthesia, but before she died, she forgave her attacker. And that was a pretty extraordinary moment for all of the doctors who were there, and ultimately for her attacker himself.
Absolutely. And can we talk a little bit more about what we can learn from her?
Yeah, well, at her canonization in 1950, Pope Pius XII referred to her as the Agnes of the 20th century, referring to a virgin martyr, and she is considered a virgin martyr. Alessandro, her assailant, was sentenced to prison, and in prison he had a vision of her and underwent a very powerful conversion. When he was released, he became a member of the Franciscans, a lay brother, and a gardener. And every report indicates that he actually attended her canonization in 1950 and asked her mother for forgiveness. And her mother said to Alessandro, "My daughter forgave you, why can't I?" She is, I think, a role model for chastity and purity at a time when both are mocked in contemporary culture, in exactly the same way that St. Agnes was a beautiful witness to purity, to chastity. So too is Maria Goretti. And I think at her canonization with 500,000 people, most of them young, Pius XII understood the message that she sent, not just in 1950, but here in the 21st century as well.
Yeah, and you mentioned her canonization. Her mother was there. Can you talk about the significance of that, and also in what ways is she still relevant today?
Yeah, well, at her canonization, there were a number of firsts. I mentioned there were about 500,000 people, there were so many, in fact, that they had to move the canonization ceremony from within St. Peter's Basilica all the way into St. Peter's Square. There were simply that many people. One of the largest canonizations in the history of the church. Her mother, reportedly, was one of the first mothers ever to attend a canonization of one of her own children. So we have those records. We also have, as I said, the reports that Alessandro was in attendance. So this is a pretty remarkable moment in the life of the church. But then we go back to her relevance. As I was saying earlier, she is a role model for young people today. We think of Carlo Acutis, who was beatified in 2020, who's a great role model for the age of the internet. Maria Goretti, I think, is a beautiful role model for young people today who are asked to defend their purity, defend their chastity, and yet, at the same time, to do that with vigor, but then to forgive, to have mercy to those who attack us, those who belittle us. And Maria stands for us, I think, as that role model, again, for purity and also in mercy.
And thank you so much, Dr. Bunson, for coming on today and sharing her story with us. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your time.
Good to be with you.
And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.